Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching this video. Well, I want to learn and teach myself how to forge, so I'm going to take a whole bunch of inspiration from Alex Steele, which he has a YouTube channel of forging. Amazing channel. That's where I've got not really my most inspiration, but the most knowledge, because he does videos on how to forge and then does the whole process on how to forge. But I want to eventually be good enough to forge to replicate and copy all of the knives and blades on Forged in Fire. I want to eventually make them from scratch and hang them up on my wall once I have a beautiful shop, but right now don't have that. So, and I've been procrastinating making a forge and getting started, so I'm a complete novice. So I'm going to do a video part series on building a forge, building an anvil out of a railroad track, and making and beginning hammers, tools, and then making leaves, which is a little keychain deal, which Alex Steele says that that's the best way to start, is by making little trinkets to enhance your skills. And so I'm going to use a wood forge, which I'm going to make in this video, and then the next video will be making an anvil, and I'm going to make that all my little forging space right here in the trees. So what I'm going to be using as my base for a forge is an old air compressor tank, which this is what shows you how smart I was a couple of years ago. I thought I'd get away with just cutting a hole in the air compressor tank and then a little gash here and be able to start a fire in it and get steel hot enough to forge with. I never had any luck. So I'm going to try it a little different this time. So I need to make a pipe that goes in the very bottom here, which is going to be a fan that injects air, which is going to increase the temperature of the fire. So I need to build a pipe that's about 2 inches long, an inch and a half long, because I have a fan, it's a cheap fan that is off of a wood stove, got torn apart because it was cracked out. So the fan works still. It's readily available and cheap. I'll show that to you in a minute. And then I'm going to drill a 6-inch hole here out of the top for a chimney, so that way all the smoke, everything can go up, which I'm going to leave that open for now because I'm outside, it doesn't matter. But if I ever bring this inside or make a tarp area over this, because I eventually, we're in the Northwest, it rains non-stop here. Can't believe I got a break to actually make a little bit of a video here, but I want to make a top for myself like this. Okay, before we start building, we need to go over some safety and logistical fields, because I'd love it if you guys would follow along and maybe try and build it yourself also. I have an old propane tank, an old air compressor tank, but there are some safety deals that we go over so you don't explode. Like, I'm going to try and do it all with just a standard grinder, so that way you guys can kind of do it at home. I'm going to do a little welding, which you don't have to do the welding if you don't have access to a welder. So I'll go over that when we're actually building it, but never cut into a tank. Air compressor tank, propane tank, any fuel cell. Never cut into one until A, it is completely empty and filled with water. Make sure it is filled with water. Even an air compressor tank. Even though it only has air ever going into it, if it has a certain type of pump on it, it could be getting oil forced into the tank and have the tank coated in oil. And when you first cut into it and get enough oxygen, boom, it's an explosion. To minimize that explosion, it must be full of water when you first go to cut into it. And also, do your own research on how to be safe when using a grinder and cutting into things that are possibly bombs. Okay, to try and keep this as cheap as possible, I'm only going to use a fan, the air compressor tank, and a chunk of pipe. It doesn't have to be thick pipe. This is probably a 14 gauge pipe, which I'm going to end up drilling holes into it. A whole lot more restricted than that, but holes into it, so that way air can escape when it's pressurized in the tank. And then I'm going to cut a box here for the chimney part, and then on this back side I'm going to cut another box so I can insert that pipe right here, so it lays right across the bottom to insert air, and I just have to fill it full of wood. Which I am not going to fill this tank full of water because I've already cut into it and I've already burned out the inside, so I'm not scared of it exploding on it. Okay, just got the top hole ground out and the rear hole, and then I drilled some holes in my pipe, so my pipe will slide in here all the way in, and I focus my holes more or less right up here up front, where I'm going to aim for most of my heat will be right here. And whenever you're grinding and cutting, use hearing protection. Eye protection is very important. So here's the fan I'm going to be using, so I just need to adapt the output. So I've already used this fan for one of my firewood systems, which it really didn't work out. So for my firewood system, I need it to suck in and then blow out syngas. So I have this here, which I'm not going to play with that at all. I just need to adapt this to here. So I just need to oval this out and then run another self-tapping screw into that, because I'm not really worried if it leaks, and if it does leak, I can throw a little tape around it. It's not really... Well, got the fan hooked up, blowing. So I just took and smashed it in, and then I'm going to put a piece of tape over this so I can restrict the airflow so it's not burn it up too hot. Well, I'll wait for it to heat up. Sledgehammer, because I got it for free because someone broke the handle off, and I thought I'd be able to pull the power and use it as a swinging hammer for today. So I got a 6-pounder, and we'll see if that's better. We'll see if this goes better. I was in such a rush to get this thing fucked up. I had to take the rubber tires off, and they kind of, so I had to stop at middle of that feet and take the tires off. They started to catch on fire. Here's my first leaf. Way harder than I expected.